start to put tension on my string drawback, I was like, okay, I'm gonna swim.
It's him. You can look at the horns when he's dead. I'm in the zone. Let the arrow go is perfect.
So when they lose their front shoulders, you start, that's how you know there's smoke.
Went about 5-10 more yards. We probably went 20 yards total. Tipped, then we would try to get back up. And I saw him pull up.
We rushed 40 years rods that night. We got like 156 and something like that. And then the next day we came out to 163 even.
You're listening to the White Cat Outdoors podcast, bringing you to the table where we talk about the outdoors.
What's up, everybody? Episode 82 today. It's Tuesday. We're recording a little off kilter today, so bear with us if we have any snafus, because Nick's just not used to changing stuff up. He's pretty good at messing stuff up on the computer. He is here today. He's not going to be talking, but he is here. His attendance is still perfect. Tom's also here.
Glad to be back in the studio.
Luke's here.
Yep, here I am.
We've been seeing a lot more of Luke lately, and we like it.
It feels good getting back on the podcast.
Yeah, we're all about it. And we have a guest. I'll let you introduce him, Luke, because you guys have been friends for a while. So
met him through work. It's Levi Pepperman, actually.
Hey, how's it going?
But thought we'd have him, on today and talk about.
We've talked a little bit about you in previous episodes.
Oh yeah. If we got repeat listeners, they've heard your name before. But was it last week or 2 weeks ago that I was on? 2 weeks ago. I did a open water walleye bit and figured, what better way to wrap it up, because a lot of things we said, if you got a boat, doing this with a boat, and a lot of our listeners don't have a boat, and
even if you do have a boat, it's a nice change of pace to go walk the shores.
I still I still love fishing, from shore, but figured we'd have an expert on and give maybe a couple tips and tricks and pointers and whatnot, just if somebody's new getting into it, and hasn't had any luck fishing, because I know, from where I'm at, I never shore fished at all, for walleye or really anything. I mean, I would catfish and whatnot, but
simple stuff. Mine was just casting a weight on the bottom and sitting there and waiting.
when I thought about, walleye fishing, it was, get the boat. And that was, the first thing in my thought when...
That's how most people are.
When
they
you hear
think walleye fishing, you're out in
the water.
Yeah.
And, when I started working with Levi, he'd talk about, shore fishing for walleye. And I'm like, what? Like,
how do you cast that far?
We're out, in 60 foot of water. How do you, so anyway, so he got me hooked on that.
You're so clever.
Good pun. So, I guess we'll turn the mic over and maybe you can, just tell us a little bit, when you first got started into it or how you got started into it. Because, we all went there, with our stories on who got us into fishing or hunting or whatever. So what kicked that off for you?
Ever since I was little, my dad was an avid fisherman. He always liked going fishing for, his main target were walleye and perch most of the time, or crappie and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But to make it enjoyable for me, he would take me for stockies and stuff like that to begin with, and bluegill and stuff. And,
I think almost everybody started out on bluegill and stock trout.
Yeah.
Everybody's fishing career started out with that.
They're one of the easiest to catch,
Yeah.
You can throw bread balls at them and stuff like that.
A piece of bubble gum, anything.
Stockies the same way. Sometimes they're that hungry, you can throw pretty much anything at them. But it's something to get you hooked. And, I love my dad, and I love spending time with him. But there was something there. When my dad first started taking me, I would get upset when he wouldn't. To where I would literally cry. I'd get that upset. Why'd you go without me, Dad? And
he even targeted some of the, I want to say like secret stuff, like I'm not sure what word, but he did, some burbot fishing and some stuff like that not a lot of other people did. Like,
he knew about it, so when they were around and we were catching them, he knew what they were and that they were edible and stuff like that. But when he came to just targeting them, he didn't really know that, go
this
down
time
to this
of year,
place in the fall here in October, November, and December and stuff. But he knew that if you caught one, there was going to be a lot more. And he always told me to learn from the experiences that I have. When you start fishing, it's not just, take some crawlers and some hooks and some shot. Pay attention to things like the bugs that are around and what time of year it was and the color of the water and stuff like that. But as a kid, you never do.
You're just walking around with Dad.
Yeah, and the thing is, my dad, he always had spinning reels and rods, and I can remember my first fishing pole, Zebco push button.
Of course.
Classic.
Everybody.
But I hated it. I hated it so bad that I refused to
You
fish
learn
with
to
it.
hate them real quick.
So I would fish with a stick rod, just stick with line wrapped around the top of it and stuff like that, and I would fish like that, and for a long time, for many years. And the thing that turned me away from it is one experience that I had. We were fishing the ore docks, and it was like October, and it was cold. I had my snowsuit on, and I could see these perch down at the ore docks. It's deep on one side, like 32, 33 feet into the channel area where it goes back in. And around the front, there used these rocks that laid real low that came up to a shallow spot to where Mill Creek comes out in the back corner. And with a stick pole, I could fish that. I could see the perch. I was throwing at them. I was catching some decent-sized perch, like 8, 9 inches or stuff like that. But I could see bigger ones just beyond them, And I'm trying to cast this stick pole. And it's ridiculous to actually try and do it because you're just flinging it out. And the only way you can cast more is to take more line off. And I was taking more line off, and I was getting to the edge of the rock to throw it out there. And I ended up falling in. And all the way went under and stuff like that. My dad had to take me out of there, and that was the last time I used a stick pole.
Time to upgrade.
Yeah, I started using that Zebco a lot more, and it was very hard because when you watch you're learning how to fish from who you're with. And my dad uses spinning reels and stuff like that. I'm watching him how he's casting and stuff like that. And here I got to push this button and know when to let go so the line will go. And man, was I beating walls and the ground? And minnows are flying everywhere. It was such a ruckus until I figured it out. I had let go at a certain time, and then I started producing some fish and stuff like that, and it became more fun.
Even like I've fished bait casters, open face, like everything, and I'll be at a pond and like a little kid's got a push button Zebco and he's having trouble, and you'll walk over to go help him and you're like, I can't even cast this thing.
or it has that little tangle on inside the reel.
Yeah, and you can't see it.
And it's just plop.
Yeah, you're like, look,
Kid,
you
I
gotta take
swear
it
I can
apart.
cast way out there. My kids were funny though. I got them some weird stuff like those rocket poles.
I had
those
one
out.
of them.
Oh my god, they look like shotguns and stuff.
Yeah, I had one. I caught a couple fish in the pond with it.
I caught some fish, Waterworks Pond. That's where I took them to try it because that's the only place I could think that thing would actually work. But the bobber hits the water, it splits open, it drops your bait in the water, and it does do that. But there's a limit to it. But it was no fun. I didn't.
It's not. It looks a lot cooler on TV, but like you said, anything
you're getting the kids into it.
Kids,
yeah, and that's what my dad was, and fun for me was not just fishing with him, but there's my Uncle Gary and my cousin Joe Malone, who we would always meet up with. So I had someone around my age that I could go with, and that made the experience much, much more fun, especially because he enjoyed it as much as I did. Going fishing and stuff like that, and still to this day he still enjoys it that much. When he comes up from Florida, he catches up with me and we go fishing and stuff like that, but he always has stories about snook and this and that. Big ones like 38-inch snook, and I'm like, I
caught one that was 24. I was actually with when you were down.
I was with
there
you.
were some big ones there though.
That kid was like, cast at me, there's a huge one, and there's like 12 kids swimming around with his fishes out, and there's like, I ain't throwing any hooks by you guys.
I had these big circle hooks, and there's a group of a dozen people. He's like, "There's a big snook right here," and I'm like, "Yeah," and the tide's cruising your way.
You
and
guys
I'm
are
like,
gonna get
a hook in
snagged.
your leg.
Yeah.
That'd be a great fight. I'd love to catch you.
Yeah.
But so that was my first experiences fishing, and I hated it. With the Zebco, but I loved catching the fish, and after I got older, once I started getting older and older, my dad started letting me do other things when I was fishing, or after fishing, the other parts of it. I started off cutting the heads off of fish before I filleted, and I was probably about 4 years old when I started cutting heads off and opening bellies. And my dad would make it interesting for me, even though it's kind of gross. Most people think it's gross, but being a boy and whatever, and a fisherman, I was interested in what they ate.
Oh yeah.
So you got in a perch and you're like, oh, I wonder what he got in there, and then you'd see weird stuff once in a while, like crayfish. Like, where the heck does perch get crayfish?
Yeah.
Out of the bay.
Yeah.
But they are in the bay, and that's the funny thing. It's not many people realize that there's certain spots in Shoreline. I mean, especially like Mill Creek's over the one edge, and there's rocks and stuff.
If you think about it, Cascade that runs into it, or Mill Creek, or even just elk or walnut. Any.
If you're at the mouth of anything,
even if you're not at the mouth, like a big storm like this, if something gets pushed in, from anywhere, there's crayfish in all those creeks, and so they're in the lake, they're in there.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was really cool. Always to see that kind of stuff, and my dad used to get me to try to pull hearts out and stuff like that. I remember one time we were fishing, and he caught a catfish, and he's decided he was going to keep it, and we're going to try it. And he wanted to show me the heart, so he cut off the head of the catfish, and he dug up, and the heart's inside the head, and I didn't know this. I was like, everything's behind the chest and stuff like that, so I always thought it was down towards the gut. And he pulls out this catfish heart and he throws it in the water, and you can see it beating still in the water.
That's wild.
Because it was that fresh. He did it right at the side of the creek when it happened.
We've had frog legs that are still kicking. And,
throw salt on them when they're in the sink. A little bit of water, and they'll kick at you and stuff like that.
I'll be 100% honest. I've filleted, I don't know if I would say thousands yet, but definitely on the better side of 500.
Lots of fish.
Walleye. I'm just saying just walleye.
Yeah.
I don't know if I filleted one if I could tell you what the heart looks like. Seriously, I don't know if I've ever cut it.
Because when you do so many, it's just like a mindless thing. You just fillet, throw the
I don't know if I could tell you, what a walleye, or even the lungs. I don't think I've ever seen walleye lungs, come to think of it.
No, there's the gills.
I was kidding.
They're all black, man. They smoke too much.
Yeah.
But that's a part of it that my dad did. And sheephead have rocks in their head, little black rocks, He had to show me that one. He had to cut off a head of a sheephead and pull the rocks out.
Now, did you ever eat the sheephead?
No, that's the bad part about that one. I heard that drum in cleaner water is a pretty good fish.
I think it was your dad was saying that they were brought here as a
food fish.
Yeah.
And
because ocean drum are eaten all the time. Tilapia.
Yeah, phenomenal.
But
out of Lake Erie, it's a little dirtier in there.
Yeah, in my experience.
Some people, though, I've seen people like with stringers of them and say, they're pretty good. But I can't personally say if they're good or not, because the only statistic that I have that says that they taste like garbage is my grandpa Sobes, which keeps walleye and perch.
Yeah.
That is it. Steelhead, no. Catfish, no, which Nick loves catfish.
I like catfish.
Nick's really good at filleting them, too.
No, I wouldn't say great.
That's why he said really good.
Yeah.
There's an art to it. It's just like you were saying with burbot. They're like big. They're the same as catfish. They have the leathery skin and stuff like that. And you have to do special things to fillet them. And the only good part on them is their back straps. There's nothing around their ribs or their belly area. You gotta just take their back straps off.
The first time I heard about them, but the first time I ever seen one was when you caught that first one. It was like 9 something or 10 something.
Oh, it was
pounds.
10. It was 10 pound.
Yeah, 10 pounds.
32 inch.
10.21
yes,
or something.
That's what it
I
was.
think it was.
That was it was.
But
it was funny. I called you that day.
Yeah, that was the first time I've ever seen like a burbot out of Lake Erie, and it was really like kind of like wow, like,
that was funny.
Swimming in here. And then you brought me a piece of it to eat at work the next morning.
A couple pieces. Yeah, they're weird. You got to clean them fast and cook them pretty fast.
They're phenomenal though.
They're delicious. The thing about them is you don't want to ever refrigerate them or freeze them. Freeze them's the worst. Most people want to freeze stuff for a long time,
Yeah.
and that's really bad for burbot. And just the way their meat is and the texture of it.
I didn't know that.
It almost
Refrigerator, I wouldn't do more than 3 days myself. That's the longest I would ever leave a burbot in the fridge. Something happens to their meat after so long. That
like
it doesn't go
walleye
bad,
are
but it's weird.
white and flaky. Like they have like layers. You can
Yeah.
kind of peel
Yeah.
them apart. Burbot's more like what you'd think of like a brain. Like
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
strands of meat like woven. It's
Huh.
kind of
That's
it's
wild.
It's different. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's chewy like walleye cheek meat.
Yeah.
But
Like a
it's
frog leg kinda,
delicious.
but
yeah,
it's like
frog leg too.
I would say it's more like burger than like chicken.
Yeah,
If I had to
just a
compare it
chewy
to like
burger.
other food.
yeah.
Like just the consistency of it's really really bizarre. But
Is it similar to catfish meat?
Yeah,
As far as taste?
actually,
yeah, I'd say probably yeah.
yeah.
It is really good though.
Really good. I enjoy them. I keep one almost every time I catch them. Except for this year, I let 2 go. Normally I keep them though.
Yeah, see-
I called Luke on that day,
he-
same day
he just
too.
said,
I said,
yeah,
hey,
he-
man.
Levi just said he let 2 go. I know people who've been fishing for him for years and haven't caught 2. You know, so but like your dad said, if you catch one, there's more than one there.
Yeah, it's just like walleye fishing too. I always tell myself that when I'm down anywhere.
If you catch
casting
one, you're like, I gotta
Oh,
stay.
there's more one around here.
Yeah.
somewhere."
One more cast.
Yeah, and that's my
Gets
big
everybody.
thing.
Yep.
Next thing you know, it's 11 o'clock at night. And
Yeah.
like I got work in the morning. I don't know if I should cast.
Yeah, one more cast.
Yeah. But I've had those nights where I've had like I gotta admit I never limited out from shore. And it's weird. I had the 6th one in my hand one night. I was fishing, and I was catching a lot of shorts. I had caught 12 walleye that night, and out of the 12, 6 of them were keepers. The last one was a 19-incher, and I was holding my hands, and it popped its back spines up and stabbed me in the thumb, and I dropped it in the water. So I could not count that as a limit because I didn't get to take them all home.
Yeah.
But I technically caught my limit
Yeah.
of walleye, keeper size. But most of the time, I've had times where I've had 4 to 5 on my stringer, and they're all between 25 and 28. And I'd look down at the stringer and say, man, that's a lot of fish right there. I really don't need more. So I'd end up leaving. Leave some for tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I know people that got freezers of walleye, whereas
Yeah.
I think last year, 2 years ago, was like the first year in forever that you froze fish. Like,
Yeah.
You never freeze fish. You'll catch them and cook them either that night or 2 nights from then. But for just we're starting to get into the catching them walleye. Like if somebody wants to get into it, whether they're on Michigan, Erie, Ontario, whatever one of the Great Lakes, what would be like just a couple bits of advice, or like how would you get started to catch like I said, you don't have to give exact spots or anything, but just somebody that wants to go out and catch some fish. What are some key points that that you need to take into account to make that happen?
Well, if we're talking about like trying to find walleye on your lake,
again, the Great Lakes,
and you're night fishing, a lot of things that you got to pay attention to is the time of year really matters at first, and water temperature. I found over the years that I've been doing it, which is about 38.
longer than all of us have been alive.
But being young, my dad started me about 12 years old, actually letting me go night fishing for walleye. You can catch them during the day, but there's certain places that you can do this at. Most of the time you want to be river or stream or somewhere that has walleye, and you got to know spots and holes. Well, you don't really have to know it, but you got to be able to tell that something's going to be deep enough where it's going to hold them. Yeah. But if you're going to go fishing and really want to try some night fishing for walleye, first thing that you want to really do is kind of know your lake a little bit. And you want to know where there's bait fish. They're going to follow bait fish wherever they go. And a lot of, like, the biggest hint I could ever give anybody is go to your mouths of your creeks and boat launches. Those are like the 2 places I would tell people to start.
You always say boat launches. There's a reason that they put a boat launch.
Yeah, I have theories about that. Someone was fishing from shore, catching fish, and they're like, man, if I could just get out even a little bit further, and then it becomes a boat launch.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
There's a reason that somebody put a dock here.
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah.
It's
started
not because they
catching
wanted
fish.
to fish 20 miles that way.
Yeah.
That's right.
Put a dock there.
They just wanted to go out a little bit further,
And it makes
fish
sense.
And from my experience, that really does work. I fished a lot of new places, new lakes, and new stuff like that. And a lot of guys say, "Oh, look for overhangs and brush and cover and stuff like that." Start off simple.
Yep.
Go to your boat launches, cast around by them.
Because
try to
usually
find your
there's,
deep pockets.
if they build a boat launch there, there's either, a wave break or,
Yep.
some big rocks.
Yep.
So there's structure
Create
there.
structure.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
and
good artificial structure. And like you said earlier about bait fish, I don't know who said it, but if there's little fish, there's big fish.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like in the ocean or whatever. There's if there's little fish there, there's something bigger eating them.
That's right. That's right. And sometimes catching those little fish, if it's legal to use them, to give them a try by throwing them out there. Have an extra rod to throw something a little bit bigger out there. On a bobber, on the bottom. I was fortunate that my father was a fisherman before. I didn't have to learn by myself how to do all this stuff. My dad says, I was 12 years old. He wakes me up. He was working second shift at GE. Wakes me up at 11:30. And he says, "Levi, you want to go night fishing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to." And so he takes me to the spot where we go night fishing for walleye and stuff like that. And I had no clue what I was doing. My dad ties on a Mr. Twister. Was it 1/8-ounce jig head? He says, "Cast it out there as far as you can. Don't let it sink to the bottom, though. There's a lot of rocks out there."
Actual Mr. Twisters are getting harder to find. Like,
Yeah, they're real.
usually, like, bait stores will just have Mr. Twister everywhere.
Oh,
But
yeah.
now with like all the new plastic baits, I've actually like looked for Mr. Twisters, like at your Field and Stream or Sportsman's or even bait shops, and I'm like, "Do you have any Mr. Twisters?" And they're all just the off-brand. They
Yeah.
all look the same, but
Yeah, they work. They
Yeah.
all work. The ones we used to buy were local bait shop, Smitty's. He made all his own plastics and stuff, and his jig heads. We used to buy those up. But what was nice, and this is the reason why my dad started me off that way. Rapalas cost, even when I was young, they were $5-6, and
Yeah, they're
nowadays
expensive.
they're $10 to $12.
Yeah, for the big
Yep.
F-18s or whatever. Yeah, they're
and you go out and you're casting, and you run into a log, a rock, you get something that breaks your line, a carp, or something like that, because all those fish are around where walleye like to hang out, and you end up losing these expensive lures when we were throwing Mr. Twisters, a twister tail that was 5 cents, and a jig head that was 10 cents. So I was losing 15 cents.
Yeah.
as opposed to $10.
Yeah, But so my first experience, and this is a funny story. My first walleye I ever caught, I was 12 years old. It was August 4th, 2012, and I was casting. And my dad actually gave me one of his old ugly sticks. He had an ultralight 5-foot ugly stick, and I had him buy me a Shimano reel, and I was using it for a few years, before I went walleye fishing with him. And I'm back there casting with this thing, and my reel freezes up, just sticks. I couldn't use it anymore, and I'm like, dang it, I was feeling all bummed out because I couldn't fish, and I had to sit down. And my dad's like, "Here, Lee, use my pole. What we'll do is you catch fish, I catch fish, you catch fish, I catch fish." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds all right." So I cast, I get it out there, I'm reeling in, and bam, I hit this fish, and it's a smallmouth bass, and it was probably about a 22-inch smallmouth bass. It was a big smallmouth. That was just fighting me. I'm like super stoked.
I love catching
Oh
smallies.
man, that place, the place my dad took me was so full of them, man. You could catch easily 30-40 of them. Your thumb would come back raw and bleeding because you caught so many of them. But that's not what I was back there for, and I caught the fish. So I go to pass my dad the rod, and I say, "Here, Dad, I got a smallie. It's your turn." And he's like, "No, you keep casting." So like my next cast after that, I throw it out there. It hits the water, and I'm cranking it in real slow. And about 3 cranks from when it hit the water, I get this bite. Bam! It's just real hard tug. I set the hook, and the pole bends over. And it's not fighting like a smallie. And I'm like, what is this? What is this? And it's fighting pretty good. I get it up, and I landed as a 25-inch walleye. And I was so happy, And I ended up casting for about another 2 hours with nothing. Well, no more walleye. I caught a bunch of bass and
Two
some
fish back to back.
and stuff. But
That's the crazy thing. Like you said, you set the hook and, you could feel it, fighting. Like when you're trolling, you don't really feel walleye. It's just kind of, you drag them in, put your line back out, drag them in. But even like when we would go jigging and, like jigging, you get a, real good feel for them. But that's also, just vertical,
Straight up and
down. And the first walleye, I caught, from shore with you. It was like,
that was amazing.
They fight, and it's cool. It's a completely different feeling. Like it doesn't even feel like the same fish,
Yeah.
And your line's usually, lighter, 6-8 pounds versus a 20-pound leader. And your reels and rod itself is a lot smaller. So
that would be the other thing I'd suggest to anybody is don't go super heavy. It makes a hard cast. You want to get out there ways. Normally when you're like shoreline fishing for walleye, you're not fishing 15 foot of water or anything. You're usually in like 3 to 8.
Yep.
When you're casting out there, sometimes you're wading out to your chest waders, or you're standing on rocks in front of a drop off or something, and you're casting at that.
I remember
but stick baits work really good, and Mr. Twisters. I've been, that's what I grew up on, casting. But I started watching YouTube videos and stuff like that, and I wanted to try newer stuff for walleye fishing, and I started getting into the Kytex or the swim baits. Soft plastic swim baits, and those are neat. I mean, I really do enjoy using them right now. They're different, the way you can work them, you're bouncing them off the bottom instead of just, Mr. Twisters, I always just cranked them in.
Yeah.
And same with Rapalas, and once in a while you'll stop and pause and stuff like that and see if you can get something to crack on it when you pause. But, traditionally it's just cast and retrieve. And my one other buddy that we work with there, he tells me that I'm like a machine.
yeah, it's like a
says
sprinkler.
He never quits casting. I'll go fishing for a couple hours, but the theory is behind it is if you're not in the water, you're not catching fish. And I do take breaks. It does wear on me, especially now that I'm 41, and 2 hours of casting really gets to your shoulder and your arm and your back and but
if you cast 500 times and Jeff casts 75, you had, that many more chances, six times the, amount of chances than he did.
Yeah, but if anybody that's starting out, all I can say is it can happen on your first cast or it'll happen on your last.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen for everybody. Don't be afraid to switch colors. I've always, and I'm weird in a sense, I guess, or just been fishing too long. I don't know. But whenever I go for lure selection, I look at it and say, if I was a fish, I would eat that.
Oh, you have to say that too.
I do the same thing, and also what I do sometimes is I'll even hold the lure and just kind of move it through the air.
You got to.
I'm like,
Like
when I tie flies, every single fly, I set my my vise up right in front of me, and I have my fly box sitting on the table. Every single fly that I've ever tied, I've swam it over to my fly box and set it in my fly box just to make sure.
That's how they catch fish.
Okay, and I have put flies back on the vise because there was something I didn't like.
Like, wait a minute, that didn't move right.
Yep, I was like, that wasn't right.
Didn't move right. But I do that too. I mean, in a sense, when you first go out fishing, you do a short cast to see how your lure is running.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and
when
you're like, oh,
you're
man,
on the boat and you put it next to the boat. Oh yeah, you're like, oh,
I would hit that.
I think Tom has a shirt that says that.
I do, yeah.
It's two bass looking at a lure and says, "I'd hit that."
But I mean, that's the general thought of it. If it's appealing to you. Yeah. You have more confidence.
Whether it works or not, it's just one of the things we do.
It's just a confidence builder.
Yeah, it keeps you casting.
Well, I think I told Tom or Frank about it, and I'm sure as soon as I say this, it'll give it away. Your clothing that you wear when you go fishing.
Oh,
you're picky about it. Yeah, I told him. But
that's my fisherman's superstition.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to pump gas before you go fishing. So if you plan on going fishing tomorrow,
do it the night before.
Pump your gas tonight.
What's the story behind that?
The smell, you don't want to get that on your lures. But with the clothing thing, it's just goofy. I refuse to wear white T-shirts when I'm fishing. Birds of prey are white underneath, and the fish see that and they'll get scared of you.
Yeah.
No,
Makes perfect sense.
I've worn,
I got all kinds of superstitions.
Oh
though,
yeah,
you know.
but it's one of those things, the guy who wears the same pair of underwear for every football game. Like, it's just,
the pair of socks. I had
Yep.
a pair of socks I wore every single football game.
Oh yeah, if you didn't wear them, you'd probably lose.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, I always lost, but I played
wasn't the
well.
socks.
Yeah.
I always played well when I wore these socks, and if my mom washed them, for some reason I would get like crushed. I wouldn't understand it, man. I smelled too good, and they were like attracted to me more or something. I don't know. Being a middle linebacker and all, you
Yeah.
got those blockers running after you.
Oh,
you know? But
I remember when you were saying, fishing like 3 to 8 feet, from shore.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. I always thought it was deep, but you'll know where I'm talking about. But it's a very vague name. The river.
oh yeah,
Well, you call it the river. No one else will know what that means. But when you took me down to the river,
oh yeah, that was
we were
ooh.
night fishing, and he hollers over at me, and we went down there and we caught 2 fish. He said, and when we went down there, he said, we'll probably catch fish. He said, I'm not positive, but he said, we'll probably catch them. And he's like, and if we do, they're gonna be nice fish. I was like, okay. He's like, we're not gonna catch more than 5 fish probably, but he's like, if
They're
we
gonna
do
be-
catch them, he said they're gonna be nice fish.
Oh yeah.
So, we were there for like maybe 10 minutes, and I get smacked, and we were targeting walleye. So I was like, oh man, I just got a nice walleye. Starts jumping out of the water and doing flips. I'm like,
Not a walleye.
Not a walleye.
Not a
And
walleye.
nice brown, real nice brown.
Oh yeah, yeah. Those river
And-
browns are.
Yep. So reel that in, threw it back in, and dude, we went like 2 hours,
Oh, yeah.
like without a bite, without anything. And sun finally went down, and the lights behind us, there was a structure behind us, lights turned on, and kind of create a little glare on the water. And Levi's reeling in, and picks his bait out of the water, and he's like, oh! And I was like, what? And he's like, dude, something just, swiped at it right there. He's like, I saw it, and there was no splash on the water. It was like all underneath the water, and he just flipped it right back out, and right in front of it started reeling in, and it smacked it. And it was, I don't
25.
25, 26.
25.
Yeah, it was real nice walleye, like from maybe me to the end of the table to you away, like
Yeah.
5-6 feet from them, and maybe 1.5 feet, 2 foot of water.
Yeah.
And caught a 25-inch walleye, and I was just like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But-
Because your whole life
Yeah.
you spent on a boat
oh yeah.
trolling in 60, 70 feet of water.
Yep. But I was like, but I mean, it makes sense now. I mean,
They push up.
Yeah.
Hungry fish, especially times of year. Around here in Pennsylvania, when it opens in May, walleye have that time to spawn, and they're like post spawn after that, and they're on a feed, and most fish want to trap their food. And when you're out in the middle of the lake, the only way to trap food is if you have a large school. Early in the season like that, and all the bait fish, have to be out there.
Yeah.
So when you got in the early season like that, in May and stuff like that, all your bait fish are close to shore anyways, and those walleye will push. They'll push up. And
you'll see him sometimes.
Oh, you'll
when-
hear 'em.
Yeah, when you first took me out, he was like, watch the horizon. Like you'll see
'em
fish
roll.
coming out, and you'll see him jumping way in the surface, or minnows shooting out of the water. And as that sun starts to go down,
Gets
those
closer
flashes
and
get
closer.
closer
Oh,
and
yeah.
closer.
Yeah.
And all
Oh,
of a sudden,
man.
zing, you get the catch.
Yeah, that was a funny
You know what
story.
that is, bro?
That was a funny story that first time. We were down there, and this
like
guy
fly
caught
fishing.
like a 32-incher. This guy caught it, and he didn't want it. He already killed it though, and he had it on a stringer. He
Was that when me and you went down there?
and
Yeah.
he bled that
Oh,
one,
yeah.
right? That,
Yep.
And he was
'Cause
like,
you caught
anyone
you
want
caught
one?
2.
Yeah, I got 2.
I caught
You
1,
got
and
one.
then he gave me
that
another
one. But yeah, so we're down there, and he gives Luke this fish because I didn't want it. I wanted to catch my own.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
okay, I could only catch 1. Okay, I
No,
need some help.
it's all right, man. It was your first time ever. I mean, out of all the people that I ever took walleye fishing, Luke was the only one, his first trip ever to catch one. And most people watch me catch them, and I explain what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But and the funny part of the story is I hit a walleye. we didn't even get to fish the spot I wanted to. There's some guys fishing there. We had to fish down a little ways.
They weren't even fishing. They were just sitting there with their bobbers,
but
and
still.
I was like, "Are you
That's why.
kidding me?"
That's why we could.
Oh, yeah.
That's why we could cast in the spot
Yep.
we wanted to. So, so I hit a fish, and nice walleye. It was about 25, 26, and Luke netted it for me, and I had my net, which is a net / minnow net.
Not a walleye net.
Well, he
It
took
has
a-
mesh in it. Okay.
He took a regular net, like with the maybe inch or 2 inch across squares.
Yeah.
And then zip tied it with the really super fine.
Yeah, a
net.
minnow net.
Like,
so I
so
can catch some minnows once in
Yeah.
a while, you know?
Hooks get tangled.
Yeah, I bet they
God.
do.
So
That's why I got you that new net.
yeah, and I put I swear to God, ever since Luke gave me that net, I put 50 walleye in that net. No BS.
That's a nice net.
But so Luke nets the first walleye, and that I caught, and my lure's mangled in it.
Buried. He's like,
And
I'm going to need a minute.
I'm out back here, and I put my walleye on the stringer, and it's still laying next to me, and I'm getting my Rapala out, and I finally get it out, and I go to turn around to see how Luke's doing, and his rod's bent. I didn't hear a noise. He didn't say, "Oh, fish on," nothing.
Just gotta be quiet about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and his rod was just bent over, and I'm like, "You got one?" He's like, "Mm-hmm."
First time I took Levi out on the boat jigging for him, he
that's
caught
a
a real
funny
nice
story.
one, and the whole time yelling, I'm like, "Shut up!" I'm like, "Keep that down," because there was boats around us.
Oh,
Yeah.
the fog was so thick they couldn't tell
that
what was
was
going on.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah.
I have never seen in my life fog thicker than that. Where like it, not even where you're
Maybe
like,
10
oh,
feet.
10 feet, 20 feet, like it's getting fuzzy. Like no, at that 10, 20 feet, you couldn't see. If you
Really?
held your hand out, like your arm straight in front of you, your hand was foggy.
Yeah.
Like
That's
it was
crazy.
the
It was-
thickest. If you were in the front of my boat, you couldn't see the motor.
No, it was really
It was
bad. It was really
thick.
that bad. And
wild.
that's a funny story too, because I never done it. I never vertically jigged walleye.
I couldn't even
on
tell
Lake
where
Erie.
we were.
No,
There-
not at all.
like the-
how close we were to shore.
I started
The
to
only
get
reason
scared.
we knew we were away was because it said it was 17 foot of water,
but
and
the-
I'm like, yeah, we ain't that close if it's 17.
But the wind was blowing. We had no anchor. It was my old boat, so I didn't have
Yeah.
a GPS on it.
Yeah.
It was just like,
yeah,
we're
We're in enough water to float, so we're good.
we're in Lake Erie.
yeah, we ain't
I don't
hitting
know where
bottom.
else.
I kind of knew where we were just because
yeah.
what we pulled up to.
Oh yeah, but,
But,
where you're drifting, we wanted.
Once
to,
we drifted and we lost sight of the landmark I knew of, and I'm like, yeah, I have no clue where
Yeah.
we're gonna end up here, man.
but we caught fish.
Yeah, we did. You lost a couple. I got at that 28 incher, my first one.
That was a nice one.
He was teaching me how to do it while I caught it.
Yeah, I was like,
No, it's funny.
yeah,
It's
it was-
super funny.
it was.
"How do you
he's,
do
he's
this?"
like, so, like, what's, because, while I'm casting, I'm like, do you just steady retrieve or do you jerk it? Like, so while we're fishing from shore, Levi's, telling me what he does and, different, sometimes if you're fishing early versus at night, a little different presentation, time of year, slower, faster.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'll let it all the way down to the bottom and pick it up. I like to do it, real quick, high and then kind of slow and maybe bounce it back on the way down, quick high. And I was like, and I let it rest on the bottom. And you'll go to do your quick snap up to
Fish on.
and I was like, and you'll feel a lot of weight. And as soon as I said it, he's like, "Oop, like that," and I'm like, exactly like that.
That's the stuff.
Got all excited.
That was it. Yeah. I mean, because I was doing it the whole time he was explaining it.
Yeah.
It was just bam, just 28-inch walleye.
I was
Turns
like,
out it works perfect.
Yeah.
I was bringing it up, and we got close to the boat, and there really was boats out, because it was first day of walleye.
and they would get close because
Yeah,
you
'cause you
couldn't see
couldn't see.
anybody. It
Yeah.
was so foggy.
Hold
so
that
you'd
down.
you'd be all by yourself. What it looked like, and all of a sudden there's a boat 10 feet from you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you just couldn't see. It was honestly probably dangerous to be out there on our little 14-foot boat. But
Then we ended up going off the pier.
yep,
And so we caught some perch and another walleye. And I think my dad got one or something like that.
yeah, he was fishing off the end.
Yeah, he quit after he caught his walleye. He said, "I got what I wanted. I'm
Yep.
going home."
I got my meal.
Yeah.
Did you ever jig for walleye at Pamatuming?
I fished out Pymatuning, and I not really jig for them. Just
Like off
just
the
vertical
off this-
fish though.
Are you talking the
know,
causeway?
But not really
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Like in front of the chain.
Oh yeah, people do
No.
that all the time.
I tried it over there, but I think I got too close. I didn't know what I was doing. I was fishing like the carp fisherman in a sense, but I had crawlers instead of dough balls.
Yeah.
And I was casting out there and letting it sit and waiting for something to pick it up, which I was having fish pick it up, but I think it was carp.
I caught a walleye on a dough ball there.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I believe it.
What
'cause
did
there's
me and
enough.
you used to jig?
Sonar
Sonar
flashes.
flashes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke was telling me a story about that.
I got
matter
you
of
hooked
fact.
on them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
those
walleye, he said. You guys
We
were
caught some-
tournament.
I
matter
think
of fact.
actually
Wasn't that the
Hunter got me
story?
hooked on those.
Well,
And then I brought them to you.
I never tournament fished them. Me and Frank used to just go down after work and we'd stand on the rocks and jig
Just
over the
vertically,
chain.
huh?
But the one time where
Over the chain? I hope you were on the lake side of the chain.
Yeah, on
Tom.
the
yeah,
lake.
that's what I.
That's why you got to have a long pole to reach
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I thought you said.
yeah. But so me and Frank are jigging for these walleye, and we're doing the same thing. You know, like sharp jig up, let it float
Yeah.
back down. Sharp jig up, and I go to jig up, and my line just starts screaming. And I don't know how long did I fight.
Hey, you fought it for probably 5 minutes.
I
and
don't
it
know
was
what it
pinned.
was. It was like just screaming, drag
It was,
out.
I guarantee you it was
You-
a
you
carp,
snagged
but
a
we
carp in
never
the
saw
belly.
it.
I don't know. I don't know what it was. All I know is it's like screaming line, and I like pull back a little bit, and my line goes limp, and I reel up, and I have a shad hooked by like the back. It was about like
Yeah, and like
Holy shit.
there was like 20 people standing there on the wall,
Yeah.
and everyone gets their line out because this fish is going everywhere. And then Tom pulls up this 6-inch shad, and everyone's like, "What the hell just happened?"
Hey, that
My drag
shad
was way too loose.
that shad was
Way.
a fighter. What probably happened is when he popped off. It
oh, that's
popped in
definitely
the
what
shad.
happened. It looked
Yeah.
really funny that I cleared
yeah.
this hole out. I'm screaming line, and then I pull out.
That's a shad. It was a walleye. That was in his mouth too.
Yeah,
No, seriously though, they do love shad.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean
Well,
we.
Things,
that
man.
tournament
I mean,
that I was telling you about, there'd be a school of shad that moved through. Rods would go off, and then the shad would disappear.
And
we
just
wouldn't
dead.
get a bite for half hour. The school would come back in. We limited out in walleye on Pima-tuming jigging. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
Like I mean, you can get on them, but it's like a rare case, and I shouldn't say rare, but
You gotta kinda know what you're doing.
in the
Yeah.
span of 2 hours. That's
Yeah.
pretty rare to catch 12 fish in 2 hours.
Yeah, anywhere. I mean, that's
Yeah.
you're killing fish anywhere you're fishing. If you're catching 12 in a couple hours,
2 hours. Yeah.
And with a mix of carp and catfish
Yeah.
and everything else.
Yeah,
So-
Pima tuning's loaded with.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it's super diverse.
And they have all that that land that you can't reserve. That's what it is. So that's an awesome thing
The
about
protected
Pima
water.
tuning, the protected water. No one can go in there. All these fish have this habitat.
I've
that
seen
no
carp
one-
and muskie make it up that little waterfall up into the
Yeah.
nursery water.
It's funny that we were talking about hooking in the big fish and not realizing what you have. Last year, during COVID, I took my youngest son fishing with me. We went down to the sand docks. That's the old name for it. It's got a new name. I'm going to use the old name. But we were down at the sand docks fishing, and I wanted to catch perch. And I had crappy setups on and stuff like that. And I asked my son, I said, "Hey, how do you want to fish today?" And he says, "Oh, I want a hook and shot." So just a hook and shot. He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to fish vertically just like we were in the summer," because I took him down there for bluegill in the summer. And I said, "Okay." I said, "What do you want to use?" I have night crawlers and I have golden shiners, because that's the type of minnow they had at the time. And he's like, I want a minnow." So I was like, "All right." I put a minnow on there. I dropped it down to the bottom for him. Now he was 9. He could fish by himself, but I'm his dad. I just wanted to drop it in for him. You know? And he got a little upset about that. And I said, "Fine, just reel it up, So he did, and he dropped it in himself. And I'm sitting there, and I cast my crappy setups out, and I just get my second one set up and tightened. And my son says, "Dad, I got a problem." And I said, "You got a problem?" I said, "What's the matter?" He says, "I got a snag." And where I'm fishing, there's they used to park boats there a long time ago when I was younger. A Viking 2 used to be parked there all the time. And they have these bumpers that are in the water and these chains. So I thought maybe he just got hung up on that chain and stuff. So I stood up to see what was going on, and his line was going away from the wall. And I
His
said,
snag was moving.
son, you don't have a snag, you have a fish.
You might want to start reeling.
Yeah, and so he does and stuff like that, and he's reeling on this fish, and I had, it's October, and I'm like, oh, it's probably like maybe a steelhead or something's hanging around there, and this fish comes up. He never set the hook. He never jerked back to set the hook. This fish hooked itself, but he brings up to the top of the water for the first time for me to see it, a walleye, and I couldn't believe it. He was vertically jigging. And the depth of the water right there where we were fishing is probably about 8-9 feet straight up and down. Mm-hmm. And
in October,
this walleye was sitting next to this wall, and it was a big one. And he's fighting it, and there's a group of people watching us, and they get to see me net it. And I was like, "My God, this is a big walleye!" And my son says, "Dad, how big do you think this walleye is?" After I landed it, and I said, "Well, it's probably about 27, 28." And we get home, and I measure it, and this kid caught a 29 3/4 inch walleye vertically fishing
In October. That's wild.
with a golden shiner from shore with a golden shiner that was probably 1.5 inches long. So that, to me, that was pretty amazing.
You spoiled him now.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
He thinks every time he's going to catch one now.
Well, no, not every time. He thinks every time if he does get one, it's going to be big, because the next time I take him, it's another familiar spot of mine. Well, it's familiar now because I've never really tried it. Fall walleye is kind of new to me in Lake Erie. Fall walleye, other places away from Lake Erie, is old to me. I've done that for many years, and I know I knew how to fish that. But my uncle used to tell me stories about catching walleye on Halloween. And I've always wanted to do it. I was like, So a few years ago, I went down to one of my spots that I normally fish in the spring, and I went down there and I was casting around, and I got a 30-inch walleye on October 24th, and I was like, oh, right, it really is true. They push back into the shoreline in the fall, and it does. I
didn't realize they pushed back in the fall. I knew they did in the springtime, but I didn't know
in
that.
the fall they'll push it back again. And the thing is,
not as heavy. It doesn't.
No.
It's kind of like
depends on where you go, I guess.
Seems like a spring run and a fall run of steelhead. You get both of them, but one's
better.
typically better than the other.
Yes, and the spring run of walleye is definitely much better. You have a longer. It seems like a longer period of time, but this year that just passed with COVID and stuff like that, I really fished hard a certain spot for some fall walleye. And I went to my normal spot where I caught him, the one last year, the year before, and I didn't get anything there. And I kept telling myself, well, I should go this place. I swear they're here. And they were. And I was getting them. I was catching at least one a night, but they were always big. I mean, they were big walleye. I was catching anywhere between, I think the shortest one I caught was one night that my buddy Jeff Huey came down to watch me or fish with me, and he didn't catch anything, and I got a 17-incher, and that was tiny compared to what I was catching, because I was bringing home they were 28 to 31 inchers I was getting, and multiple 31 inchers, and that's what was crazy about it, is that there was a lot of them. There were just a lot of 31s. That's how my son got his, is that there was just so many of them down there. It's just, and there's other guys, they were fishing away from me. I picked a spot away from everybody else because I don't like crowds. And, in that aspect of it, I didn't want to be crowded by all these guys casting all these Rapalas or whatever they were throwing. But there was guys fishing at the end, and they were getting them better than I was. But I was happy where I was because I was the only guy there.
Yeah.
And it was nice. It was nice to have that peace of mind and that.
I talk about that sometimes too. Like I would rather go out and catch half the fish that I would have in a group, but be by myself. If I go out and catch 10 fish, but I'm surrounded by people the whole time, I would much rather go even catch 2 or 3 and not see a guy all day.
Well, you got to get around. Real fishermen is the point. If you are in a group, and I hate using the word real fishermen.
Well, we say it all the time. There's people who fish, and there's fishermen.
Yeah,
there's two separate people.
And there's people that know to get out of the way, or how to countercast. Someone's cast, and you start your retrieve, and they know, okay, I can cast now, and I will not run into your line. And the hard part is when you run into people you have no idea about and stuff like that, and you're going to these spots and there's a crowd. You might want to fish it, but you don't know any of them if they're going to get out of the way or if they know how to
Cast over your line.
Yeah, you might spend the next 2 hours just untangling lines and losing lures.
So sometimes it's nice just to get away. But you got to think about where you're at and stuff. If there's guys catching walleye just down from you 25, 30 feet, you should be able to get them where you're at as well. Walleye don't just school up and sit in one spot. They're roaming at night. That's why I get picked on all the time for standing in the same spot and doing the same fan cast over and over and over. But there's a reason. I mean, I try to explain it to people that they're moving through. So the more I spend in this spot, if I was like, oh man, I'm not catching anything here, let me move, I might be moving away from where
you could have a great day and be moving with the fish, or you could be moving to the places they're not. And
or where they just were. So you picked up and moved, and now they're over where you just were. So a lot of times, old saying, don't leave fish to catch fish. You know? And it's really hard for me to leave fish to catch fish. And, so I'm one of those guys that are just diehards. I'll stay in my spot. This one's mine. And unless I there's certain days where I start feeling a little more froggy or something just looks right over there.
That's another thing too, like when people when you get to a lake, how do you, like a lake you've never fished, how do you start it? And like I'll tell them, you look for this or look for that, but when I'm doing it myself, I'm not really thinking about it. You just kind of look at it and you're like, yeah, right there looks good. Like it just looks good. Like when you're hunting,
that's
you're not like, oh, well, there's, you can think about it this way. Like, oh, there's a mouth here and there's a pinch point here. So fish have to move through here because there's a big shelf and whatnot. But you're like, oh, that just looks good. Like hunting, it's like, you're not like, well, it's this kind of tree, and this kind of time of day, it could you use this cover, and they like this area because there's water. But you're just like, that looks good.
That's the spot
that
right
looks
there.
really good. It's kind of the same thing with fishing. You know? Like,
well, and the other thing is, and I hate to say it, but a lot of fishermen, I know I've been guilty of it too. We're litter bugs once in a great while. If you look down and you see someone's old worm container right where you're standing,
even if it's
might
not,
want to fish there.
even if it's not on purpose, like,
exactly.
Or even I've had stuff, you got, a sandwich or whatever that you're in your pocket and wind blows a napkin out into the water and you're like, wow, it sucks. So there's nothing you can do. You can't go out and get it. It's just drifting away, but you can't catch it because it's just
or if the trees have decorations, as I call it sometimes.
Decorations.
If you see decorations in a tree when you're fishing, fish by that tree. There's fish there. Someone actually threw those lures and bobbers up there on accident trying to get to a certain spot, and those are giveaways. I mean, especially newbies. I mean, if you're new to fishing and stuff, that's the thing I could tell you. Is look for marks. There's going to be trails. People leave trails. Just worn paths, worn out areas on creek edges and stuff. But those are the high pressures.
Once you go to those known places and kind of get a feel for what you're doing,
and what it
then
looks
you
like,
can adventure out on your own and find those
those spots
your own hidden spots.
Those spots that look kind of like that, and they have the right depth, and they have the right structure.
And you just run into them. You're like, this kind of looks like that place I used to fish. And the place you used to fish might have 50 people a night there, and this place you never see anybody. So just try it.
And that's with me with walleye fishing. I have a spot that it has less pressure than most places that I've gone.
Even like out on the boat, you go to the pack. A lot of times, you will catch fish, in the pack, but there's a lot of times where I've been the lone boat or other boats are, way out there and they're catching just as many, if not more fish than everybody in the pack.
So. That's what my dad taught me with ice fishing is he never liked going around where all the huts were set up. And he used to always talk, let's keep going out this way, Lee. Let's go. A little deeper. We're going to walk past these guys.
Further than anybody else wanted to walk.
Yeah. Yeah, while trying to be safe, but growing up, my dad never had a spud bar. I was light and small, and I could actually run an auger, so I was a spud bar.
You got to go test it.
Yeah, my dad would save me. Mm-hmm. But my dad was a great dad. I mean, I can't. I love the guy to death, and he used to do awesome stuff for me when I didn't have waiters. He would he would carry me.
Yeah.
Even as I got older, my dad's not a huge guy. He's muscular and stuff like that, but he's 5'6". I'm 6 foot tall, and you should see me. You should have seen him carrying me across French Creek one day. I didn't bring my waders, and we wanted to go fish somewhere. And he's like, jump on my back. I'll carry you. My legs are straight
Tom.
out.
Yep. I've carried Tom across creeks before.
So yeah,
that's funny.
But great dad. Always supported my fishing. Would take me anywhere. Drop me off. Pick me up if I needed it. Give me all his poles, even when I broke them.
Yeah.
He would give me any lure out of his box without any. He wouldn't even stop me, It'd be, I just bought that lure lead. No, he's like, yeah, go ahead, catch something on it. If you get something on it, it's worth buying.
Yeah, and he's if you lose it or break it, obviously like he's not happy that you broke it, but just it's just part of.
It's one of those things that happens when you fish.
Yeah, when you're being a dad, letting your kid borrow your stuff, that it's gonna get used.
Yeah, and my dad had a point. He always used to say it's terminal tackle. Mm-hmm. That's what all tackle is terminal. I mean, you just get another one. That's why these companies make all kinds of them. I mean, of course to make money and stuff, but because people do lose them, you want. And sometimes myself, I have a certain Rapala that I like to use.
Don't give the color out.
I have like 3 of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And 2
one of them is still could be functional, but you have it, set aside that doesn't get tied on anymore.
No. I retired that one. I got one I call Trusty Rusty right now that has between 2 seasons 22 walleye on it so far. So
from shore.
From shore. And that's just 2 seasons. And that's springtime because fall I didn't get any on Trusty Rusty in the fall. I was fishing a little bit deeper. In the area I was fishing was deeper. I was fishing 8 to 12 feet. It was right around in there. And that's when I was experimenting with the Kitex and the soft plastic swim baits. And man, when they thump those things, it's unreal. The way it shocks down your arm.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it other than that, man. Yep. The tug is the drug. That's all I can say. It got me so excited. I wanted to keep coming back and doing it. So I'd bring 2 rods. I'd bring a rod and I'd put the Rapala on, and then the other rod had the soft swim bait, and I'd throw that Rapala, and for an hour I didn't get a bite on that. Okay,
time to switch it
swim
up.
bait.
Yeah,
and it was neat because. I was so used to using jigs and stuff to where I constantly retrieve them. You throw them out, retrieve them. So I did try that for a while, and I couldn't get anything to bite on it. And there's this guy on YouTube. Can I say his name? Is it okay?
Yeah.
His name's Tom. Starts with a B. I can't think of his last name right now. Dang it. But he's a really good fisherman, and I like watching him because he's not like a traditional walleye fisherman to where he's trolling all the time.
Yeah.
He throws larger sucker chubs and bounces them off the bottom and stuff like that. And he has some really neat techniques that I liked, and I kind of picked up the one for the soft plastic one and stuff where you let it hit the bottom and you pop it up. And colder water, you do shorter pops, and the warmer water, you can do bigger ones and stuff like that. So I was trying that technique, and it worked, man. It worked the first time I tried it, and it worked. That whole fall,
that's
I
always
caught
neat
walleye until December.
When you try something new, and it turns out to work. You're like, oh man, that's awesome.
And when you have different baits like that, you got to try different stuff. Especially like you said, you weren't catching anything. Move it different.
Yeah. I mean, even throwing floating Rapalas, sometimes, I say, you just keep it at a nice medium pace. Well, oops, sorry for the spit. Keep it at a nice medium pace, but that works 80% of the time.
Once in a while, you got to give them something.
Speed it up,
Give them some flair.
I mean, especially like me, I'm down there. I go on work nights. I have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I'll go on a work night, and I like to get down to my spot a little early before the sun goes down, just so I can get a few casts out there. And it's all superstition stuff.
Yeah.
But I like to get the casts out there and make noise on the water and have that repetition that this sound's already there. So if there are walleye moving in, they're already
used to it.
accustomed to the sound that's hitting. And
all those little, like you call them, superstitions, like
they probably
all
make
the-
sense.
Yeah, they do.
A lot of them, it's like, does it really help? I don't know. Does it really help? I don't know. How much does it help? But when you mix all of them together, something
Yeah, if a
some
little
works.
bit helps from
But-
each one.
But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
something works because you have all those superstitions and you catch
Catch
fish.
fish.
I
so-
do have success. And the one thing I really, and my dad, I'm going to tell this to everybody in the world. Walleye eyes are susceptible to light. If there isn't light already in the area that you're fishing for walleye, don't go shining light in the water.
You're just saying that so no one does it when they're fishing next to you.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Levi's like, all right, pack it up. No
I've
more.
go
done
home.
it. I've done that when I've had people shine the light in the water. But I've
Flashlight.
also seen it happen. I mean, they'll come back and bite. They will, and I know it because I've hung it out after the flashlights go in the water. But when you have limited time to fish for them, and you know these kind of things, and you've experienced it, and
Yep.
you've been through it, when something like that happens, it makes you want to just that
That's
kind of
it.
ruined it.
I'm
I don't
done.
have enough time to put in.
Yeah, to wait for the fish to turn back on after that light.
Yes. And I hate to be a jerk when I tell people it, but once in a while I can't hold it in. I'm like, hey,
Take your light off the water.
Yeah, walleye's eyes are susceptible to light. I hope you weren't paying attention catching a walleye right there right now. But that's the true thing about walleye. That's why most of the time during day and this time of year, most guys are out in the deeper water. Crystal clear water and 20 foot of water, it's very hard to catch them because they're hunkering the bottom, the light's affecting them, and
You can see everything.
yeah, and if you're not fishing with super light line, like 6 pound test, even out like that, you might not get a bite. But not to say you won't, but your chances are lower. And they fish do see line, and they do see stuff like that. Depth does help with certain lines. Supposedly, red lines will disappear on certain depths and stuff like that. But that's all stuff that I've heard. I'm a traditional fisherman. I brought up on mono.
Yep.
I started
None
off.
of that fluorocarbon crap.
That's
No.
junk,
Man.
Bunch of junk.
I'd try it once in a while, but that's only as leaders because it does help
It's stiff.
against
Real stiff.
yeah, and abrasive when you're running into areas that you have structure. While I do like structure, they like rocks, they like overhangs and stuff, or big rocks in the water. They'll hide behind those. They're ambush predators, and they're aggressive. And it's funny how aggressive they are towards things. I was fishing this year, and on a night that I normally wouldn't. Living where we are, you get northeast wind. It's usually a bad thing, real bad. It brings in all the junk and all the color in the water. And I had this feeling to go walleye fishing, and it's weird. I call it fish tuition, but I get it all the time, and I haven't had it for a while. But it's weird. I get these funny feelings like I should be going. And that night I had this funny feeling. I had my kids. I dropped them off. Me and my wife are separated, so I have them for 3 hours a night once in a while. And I dropped them off. I dropped them off at 8, and I really wanted to go fishing. So I told my boys, I said, "Hey boys, I'm gonna go fishing right after this." And I knew it was northeast wind, and that's usually like taboo.
Yeah, you're
And
like, I don't
everyone's
wanna
like,
fish
no one fished
northeast.
that. But I had this feeling. So
Probably
I
the
go,
only one there.
no, actually, there's one other guy, and that's funny that you brought that up because he caught some walleye too that night. And I was trying to fish where I normally fish, and I was casting straight into the northeast wind, and it's almost impossible.
Your lure's landing back at your feet.
Yeah.
Well, not me. I cast pretty far, so it was landing about 10 feet out, but not the normal length. And I was like, why fight this wind? I'm gonna cast with it to my back, and I turned to this one area, and I was casting over.
I love that when you can like just feel the line just ripping off
you
your
hear it.
rod.
And but so I threw it over there, and I'm reeling in, and like you said, that even with the at the river, I was bringing it in, and the way the wind was, it was clearer where I was at in the water. I could see down in there, and this walleye about 2 feet from shore came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only 8:30, and it wasn't even really dark yet. And I watched this thing come up at my Paul and just crush it. And it was so exciting to see that. And it was a 25-incher, and it ripped line. It came up so fast, so hard. Mm-hmm. And he T-boned it to where, Rapalas have 3 hooks on them. Especially, I use a size that has 3 hooks and bigger sometimes. But he T-boned it. And the force that he came at it, when he hit it, he took off running. And he was ripping drag from me like he was some kind of steelhead or something, And I was like, wow, for a 25-incher, they normally don't do that. They don't fight that hard. But, walleye have always surprised me. I've seen a lot of weird stuff happen walleye
You had
fishing.
a walleye jump on
Yeah.
you.
I was going to tell that story next. One time I was walleye fishing, and I hooked into this one about 21 inches, and it hit towards the surface. And when I was cranking in on them, within 8-9 cranks, it came shooting out of the water, jumping. And I was like, I've never seen you do that. I've never seen walleye ever do that.
I mean, I've
smallies
seen
and stuff
splash
like that.
on the surface,
or
but
roll,
I've never seen one
roll.
yet come out of the water.
Yeah, and it torpedoed. Like, it wasn't like a steelhead jump or a smallmouth or a largemouth jump. It was a torpedo, like just shot right out of the water and back in, which I thought was pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. But
That's
I
pretty
don't know.
cool.
Not all fishing trips are fun, and
Yeah.
bad stuff happens. You'll see some weird stuff when you're fishing.
You've seen probably the weirdest thing I've
So
ever.
you spend enough time fishing, you'll see some weird stuff.
Yeah, you'll run into some weird things, especially if you live in city areas and stuff like that. I got a story
I
that
don't know if
I'd
you've
like
ever
to
heard
share.
this, Frank. It's pretty wild.
When I was 19 years old, I was born in October, so I had to start school a year late anyways, and I failed the 3rd grade. So my senior year in high school, it is May. I am excited. It's walleye season. I'm waiting for some south winds. I'm just waiting for them, And I get my chance. It's right towards the end of the school year, about 2 weeks left. It had to have been like May 10th or something like that, maybe earlier. I can't remember exactly. And I want to go walleye fishing, and I get all geared up. And I head down to the lake. Where I live is pretty close to Lake Erie. It only takes me about maybe 10 minutes to walk to the lake. Mm-hmm. And I have a really good, it used to be really good, but I used to have a really, really, really good walleye fishing spot real close to my house. And so I went. And there's a cemetery on the way to where I fish. And
Already getting spooky.
yeah, seriously. And I like to walk the shoreline to where the spot is, like down the lake shore. And the cemetery had all these trees on the edge of the lake that they cut down, and they pushed them over, so they were hanging into the lake. So traversing over to my spot, I had to go through these trees. So I get down into the lake, and I'm wearing my waders. I only had hip waders at the time. That was before I started buying chest waders. And so I used to always wear hip waders. Because the place I used to go, you weren't really supposed to be on the shoreline where I was at. So wearing the...
this is a fictional podcast, so it wasn't, you weren't trespassing. You just,
as long as you stayed in the lake, you're okay, because
no one owns the water.
No one owns the water. So.
Yeah.
But anyways...
It's God's water.
That's right. So as I'm heading down to this spot, I had to go through these trees that were pushed in. And there was 2 sections of trees, and I get to the first, and I'm ducking around them, going under them, up and over them. And,
It's always the best, walking through
yeah.
trees with a fishing pole.
Yeah.
yeah, and I got a backpack on, carrying all
yeah.
my gear in it and stuff like that, because I've been doing that for a long, long time, since I was little. Well, since I was riding my bike everywhere fishing,
Yeah.
I found that was like one of the best things ever, is take one of your old backpacks, throw all your gear in there.
Yeah.
You can even get your rod in there if they break down.
Break it in
Mm-hmm.
half.
It's better than having to cross your handlebars
Yeah,
and whacking
exactly.
all the fences at the tip of your rod. That's how I lost a couple rods. But anyways, so I get past the first set of trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting up to the next set. And I'm looking around at the water and stuff. And then this next set of tree was a little more thick, and there's a lot more branches. So I was really paying attention to where my head was and where these branches were. I wasn't looking down at my feet. And I get about halfway into the middle of it. And I happened to look down, and down in front of me there was this body just laying in the water, with the water lapping up over it. And the body had only one part of clothing on it, and it had a blue sweatshirt that was rolled up on his neck, and freaked me out.
Yeah, I bet it did. That's insane.
I never expected that to ever happen.
Yeah.
To me. And like I said, it takes me 10 minutes to walk down there.
Yeah.
It took me 2 minutes to run back.
Yeah, I bet.
So I get home and all freaked out,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm out of breath because I ran with waders on, hip waders at that.
Yeah.
With them rolled all the way. I mean, they were up all the way, so it was a little bit easier when you have them rolled down. It's a little bit harder, but so I get home. My dad sees me. He says, "Levi, what's the matter?" And you get.
You're not gonna believe this.
I couldn't even talk. He's
Yeah.
like, I was out of breath, and he's like, "What's the matter? Did you get kicked out? Did the security guards call the cops on you or something?" And the only thing I could get out is dead body. And he's like, "What?" And I caught my breath, and I said, "I found a dead body, Dad." And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Please call the cops. I swear to you, I found a dead body." And so we call the cops. The cops come, and they're questioning me about it, and I'm telling them everything I know. I went down to go walleye fishing. I fished the shoreline of Lake Erie for walleye. I'm still standing there in my hip waders and my fishing hat with my license on it, and everything. And so they tell me to take them down to where I was. So I took them down to the place where I drop in to go back to where I'm fishing. And it's all shale lookout kind of stuff. And you can see down the shoreline where the trees are. And I'm telling them, I'm like, down in those trees, that's where he is. And they said, "He? How do you know it's he?" And I said, "Well, either it's a guy or a bald woman," because I didn't see. He was face down when I walked up on him, and I'll get into more of the backstory from what I learned afterwards. So the cops, they're questioning me and stuff like that, and one guy looks over at me and he says, "If there isn't anything there, you're going to be in big trouble for filing a false police report." And I got scared. I was like, "Holy crap! What if
he
what
walked away?"
I said, "Sir, if it's not a dead body, then it's one of those silicone dolls, because a mannequin doesn't move like the way I seen it, the way the waves were lapping up." And so the fire truck comes out next, and these firemen come out, and they're talking to me. And the one fireman was really nice. He was talking to me for a while, and then I says to him, I said, "You can use my waders. I'll give them to you. Walk down that shoreline to the second batch of trees. That's where he is, the second batch of trees." And he says, "Okay." And before I can give him my waders, I start rolling them down. The radio comes over. The cops by, and it comes over the radio. They were bringing a boat in. So they brought a boat in, and that boat comes up to the first set of trees, and they're shining light in there, and I can hear over because they have those radios that are on their shoulder, and I can hear over there that, "Oh, there's nothing here, and I said, "Tell them they're in the wrong set of trees to move down." And so they moved down to the next set of trees, and then the cop walks away from me, and I can hear some chatter, but I couldn't hear what they're saying. And next thing I know, the cop says, "All right, come to me with the cruiser." So, oh boy,
Here we go.
yeah, seriously. So they put me back in the back seat of the cruiser and stuff like that, and they started asking me a lot of questions, about what I saw and everything. And so I was telling them, and I kept my hat low because I seen the news trucks, and I was like, I don't want to get pictures of my face. I don't know what happened to this person.
Yeah.
So I kept my hat down, and it's hot in their car, and I started sweating, so I lifted my hat to wipe some sweat, forgot to pull it back down. I seen a flash of light, and they got me. I got a picture of me, and they put it in the paper.
Really?
Yeah. So
all you wanted to do was go fishing. And
yeah, catch some walleye, man. I was stoked. It was the right time of year. They probably were
That's
biting that
crazy.
night too. But that was one of the weirdest experiences and one of my craziest stories that I could ever tell
I
anybody.
hope it is the craziest.
Yeah, that's
story.
definitely a
If
crazy.
it's just one of them.
Well, so far,
Yeah.
But every time something happens nowadays, like someone finds somebody, I get a text from my ex-wife.
Yeah.
"Where are you at, Levi?" "I'm at home." "Why?" "I just wanted to make sure you're all right." "Yeah, I'm fine." "Why?" "Oh, someone found a dead body in the lake today." I'm like, oh, like I find every one of them. Come on.
Yeah.
It's a one-time thing.
Yeah. That's just what you're not going fishing. You're just going and patrolling the shores.
Yeah, seriously. It was funny though. The funniest part, what happened wasn't in the story. isn't that funny. But the funny part of the whole story is when I took the next day off of school. I didn't want to go and talk about it.
Yeah.
But I knew it was going to happen. I had to go back to school. I wanted to graduate.
Yeah.
But so when I did go back to school, people were asking me, well, this one guy comes up to me, and it's just idiotic in the sense. He says, man, what pound test line do you use? And I said, what? So what pound test line do you use? I said, I use 6-pound test. Why? He's like, how the heck did you reel in that body on 6-pound test? I said, I don't know who told you I reeled it up.
That's how quick rumors
Yeah.
spread
That's
Yeah,
insane.
what the heck? Cops already told me I can't leave the state.
Yeah.
But just because they didn't know what was going on, though,
They needed
you're a
to-
suspect until
need you to-
you're cleared.
there. Yep, they
and
needed to
stuff.
ask you some questions. They
That's
needed
wild.
you close.
So, I mean, be careful when you're fishing, especially
Yeah.
at night.
Yeah, you never know what you're
But,
gonna find.
I mean, I've been out. I'm a lone fisherman a lot of times. I love when other people come with me, but a lot of times people don't have time and they can't do it. So I end up, and I do spur of the moment, like, I'm going right now.
Yeah.
And I'm out. I can say I've met quite a few colorful person fishing, and there's times where I was scared, and I still to this day will keep a pocket knife on me just in case. Just to defend myself. I know I probably ain't gonna win, but I am going to make sure there's a way to tell that whoever got me, this is who got me. And but knock on wood, never had to use it, never other than cut my line.
Yeah, I'm sure you have to do that quite often.
Or cut down a V stick to use as a rod
Yeah.
holder
Oh,
once in
yeah.
a while, you know. And so they're always good to have with you, anyways.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, you always got to be careful, especially at night. I remember fishing in my favorite spot, and these guys would come up. I remember one night this guy came up, garbage bags taped on his legs as waders.
Really?
Whatever
And he-
works.
And he had his second pair in his back pocket, so when he went to leave, he could put them on. And duct tape. He had duct tape with him, too. I was
That's
cracking
pretty
up.
good.
I was cracking
That's
up.
hilarious.
I was cracking up.
I've had garbage bags inside my waders
Oh, me
because
too.
I had a hole, and
Yeah.
I had enough pride to at least stuff in my waders so no one else could see.
Yeah. But hey, when you can't afford waiters to put them over top of your garbage bags, you
Yeah.
just go straight garbage bag.
It used to crack me up. Guards used to come down and, you getting anything? And it'd scare me. Because I expect it's all quiet down there and stuff like that. The worst thing that you hear most of the time was raccoons fighting. And they're noisy, wild animals, man. They're just, it's horrific when they fighting each other, man. The sounds they make, it's unreal. But that's mostly, it's when you hear someone's voice behind you, like, hey, you catching anything?
Yeah, it scares the shit out of you.
Well, I just caught a log in my shorts. But they would actually fish once in a while, the guards. They would actually take out rods and
Oh, yeah?
cast. You know, they're on break anyway.
You got to do something.
Workers never cared. But guards. That one time I was kicked out 3 times in a row. The third time he kicked me out, he told me, hey, if I see you back here again, the cops are going to get you next time. I ain't even going to mess with you. The cops are just going to come here. I was like, all right, I'm going home.
Third time's a charm.
I'm going
Yeah.
home. It
It's
wasn't
like
even
the
that
golf course
spectacular.
down the road from where we have a golf course right down the road from our house, and it's really good fishing. And it all depends on which rangers running the golf cart. Some are super cool; they'll come up to, oh, you guys catching anything? And other times they come up and kick you off. So it's kind of like a
You're
coin
gambling.
flip.
You're
Yeah,
going
whether or
to-
not you're going to be able to fish there for a
Going
long
to the
time.
casino and fishing.
Yeah. But I'm sure a lot of fishermen have their spots that are like that. You know, you're not really supposed to be there, but you can get away with it.
Yeah.
But you don't have to fish there. I mean, there's all kinds of spots. Like I said, my experience walleye fishing.
Sometimes it's
Creek
fun.
mouths.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
if you're not hurting anything, if you're not hurting, the water, anybody, or the land around it, like sometimes it is fun to be somewhere where maybe you're not supposed to be. You know,
Yeah.
like I said, if you're not hurting anything,
Well, and I found, and I'm sure that you guys have been this too. There's places that people have posted. But if you go up to their house and you say, hey, I would really enjoy to fish this area, I promise you I won't leave any garbage. And most people are very nice about it, and they'll let you. They'll say, it's okay. And,
Yeah, it never hurts to go ask.
That's
A lot of
right.
people don't,
That's
though.
right. Well, yeah, what's the worst? They're gonna say no, and then
Yep.
you go somewhere else.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
go anyways. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Ask
I've done that
for
one.
forgiveness, not permission. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, when it comes to fishing on those kind of places, no trespassing or
Yep.
posted. It's
No,
better.
I
The
stay off.
permission is
Yep.
is better.
Oh,
than-
Yeah.
I stay
You
off.
never know. I mean, you can have some wild people come out there
Oh,
with
yeah.
shotguns after
Yeah.
you, you know? I mean, we had places in our neighborhood that there was places that we wouldn't go because there was this crazy old man. We called Old Man Shotgun, right? And he would come after you. I mean, swear to God, salt loads. He would,
Oh, really?
He would come after you with salt loads. And they won't kill you.
It'll hurt.
But they,
Sure
they
don't feel
oh
good.
God, they rip your skin open and the salt gets in there and just, oh my God, it's just
That's
ridiculous. But that was never anywhere that I fished. It's just I went on his land and I shouldn't
Yeah.
have been there. But I mean, going to places like that, that's why you got to be careful. I mean, staying away from some of those places that you probably shouldn't be going unless you ask permission.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but like I said, most places, if you're fishing any kind of lake or anything like that, if you're in the lake,
Yeah,
they don't own the land under the lake. I mean, if someone tries to kick you out because
They
you're,
don't own the water.
yeah, I mean, now on creeks is a whole different story.
Yeah.
I mean, if they own both sides
They-
of the creek,
they
they
own
own
the
the
land
land
underneath
underneath it, and that is
Yeah.
when you get on your raft or your float.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm just playing. I thought about that before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are they going to get me in trouble if I'm floating here? But then you have to step on land sooner or later, and
Yeah.
who knows how much land they
Not
own.
worth dealing with.
No,
it.
not at all. Not
Just
at all.
stay off.
No, yeah, you're better off. But
Mm-hmm.
but back to walleye fishing. I mean, seriously, any beginners, creek mouths, they're one of the best, especially ones that they stock. If they put any kind of trout in it, or if you do have fish in that creek, even to say that they're creek chubs, or once in a while you see perch and bluegill run up there to spawn. Well, what's going to happen is they're going to have fry that come out, and other fish eat those fry, and you know it always escalates.
Yep.
Smaller fish eat, or bigger fish
Going
eat-
up the food
Yep,
chain.
right up, and pay attention to water temperature and conditions. I mean, I used to never go walleye fishing. This is when I was younger, unless it was south winds and the water was crystal clear. I learned my lesson.
Catch a lot more fish if you go out when it's not just those conditions.
Yeah, I mean, and you can catch fish in almost any, but there is a
I've caught 'em
limit.
north, south, east, west.
Yeah, me too.
Crystal clear to you can barely see them. Now, like you said, yeah, if you know you're steelhead fishing and chocolate milk,
It's
you're
good.
probably not going to do as good. You know, if
Yeah.
it's perfect prime, but you'll catch them. You know.
Well, we've had times, I mean, even with you, where you're steelhead fishing and you walk up the creek and you make a little mud and it picks up
Oh, yeah.
because it's too clear and they can see everything too easily.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna do that with walleye or anything.
Yeah.
But even shoreline fishing, sometimes even that helps. I mean, you let your baits hit the bottom and stir up the bottom.
Oh yeah.
It looks like something's trying to feed off the bottom, and those bigger fish are intrigued, and they'll come over to see what's going on.
Now, once these beginners, I know we kind of went off on a tangent and just told some stories for a
Yeah.
while, but we started off, with some, tips and whatnot. But I wanted to ask you, before we finished the podcast, when these guys, go out and use these tips and tricks and actually catch them, I was telling them, I think it was on my last podcast, the only walleye I've ever eaten like cold or that I would is like when you would cook it and then bring it into work
Oh, yeah.
like the next day. And that is seriously, it's some of the simplest but best tasting walleye. How do you actually cook your walleye?
Oh,
Is it a
deep fry
secret?
them.
Is it a
No,
secret?
no secret. Deep fry, and it's a very simple recipe. I mean,
Do you do it like on like a pan, or do you actually have like a thing of
Oh.
oil that you have
no, it's just a pan. A vegetable oil. This Crisco stuff that you buy, the liquid oil you pour in a pan. And it's funny that you don't have to use all kinds of it, but I do like to have mine to where I hate to say it drowned in them, but it's deep enough to where they will become buoyant.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they'll float. So it's deep enough like that. But the recipe's very easy. You take your fish, and I like to get rid of all the meat that I think is no good meat or the red meat
fat
on
or-
the fatty and the mud line
Yep.
as they call it.
Yeah.
You can zipper your fish or whatever. And I like to thin out my walleye. Some people like the nice big thick. My dad he likes the back and
Yeah,
he likes
the real
it thick.
fillets. No, I
I butterfly them. I thin them out. I like them that way. But that's what I do. Bite-sized chunks. A lot of people call them walleye bites. It's just the way I do it. Some people like the whole fillet. But egg and milk. You put your fish in the egg and milk. I do flour, salt and pepper. Lately, I've been doing Lowry salt instead of regular salt and pepper. And it's all your discretion on how much of those two you want. And then you just take your fish out of your egg. You put it in your breading, or it's not really breading. You use flour or whatever. And then you fry it, and it's very simple.
I was just gonna say
it's one
it's
of the simplest
easiest,
ways.
but so good.
So it turns
Yeah,
out
you
so
always
well.
have a bag of flour in the kitchen.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
And
it's super easy.
milk and eggs and
You
salt and
don't-
pepper.
And if you don't like oil, you can do the butter margarine, and you can fry them the same way. You can bread them or do it the same way and do it in your butter and stuff. It turns out pretty much the same, but you'll get more of the butter taste, if you do it that way. But I grew up on oil frying fish, and that's how I do them. Although I
delicious.
will say grilled walleye is extremely good too.
Yeah.
Blackened walleye.
Oh,
I think some
yeah.
of the best I've ever had was actually when Ma'am just made that last beer battered walleye.
Beer battered walleye, yes.
Oh my
yes,
goodness,
yes.
that was the crispiest, best tasting walleye I've had.
Well, does your ma'am drink the beer when she's making it? Because
No.
But my experience with
Michelob Ultra was the beer of choice.
my experience
Water.
with Coors, I think they're called. Yeah, Coors, but not even light, just regular Coors.
Yeah.
My buddy's dad was making beer batter walleye for us, and
one for the batter, one
yeah,
for me.
and the more he cooked, the more beer you could taste in the fish.
Yeah.
The more he would put more in him and more in there.
Yeah. Got to keep it even.
Oh wow, yeah. I think more went in the batter after a while because
Yeah.
he was pretty drunk. But it was really good. I liked it.
Oh,
And freshwater eel he had.
yeah?
He didn't catch it. Now there's Barcelona. He drove to Barcelona and bought some freshwater eel, and I was like, freshwater eel. Who wants to eat eel? That sounded gross, but man, was it good?
I've heard of people catching them.
Yeah.
I've never even
weird.
seen one.
I never have
weird.
either.
I mean, I seen my it took years. I've seen my first lamprey on a walleye. I was fishing with Jeff.
Well, me and you were
We were
out.
trolling.
I caught a steelhead that had one on it.
That's
for,
right.
It was
That's
about
right.
maybe 30 seconds. I could see the steelhead jumping
Yeah.
out of the water, and
That's
I could
what-
see the lamprey on it.
Oh,
And I was
yeah?
like, I can see it. Like there's a lamprey on it.
That's
and then when we
crazy.
got it to the boat, there was a bright red circle. It popped off when we went to net it, but it stayed on for quite a while.
Was that
nuts.
the second time I made you take my pole?
Yeah.
That was a funny story. I was like, check out my noodle rod the first time I was fishing with Luke the one time, and I just want him to really check out my pole. Next thing
Feel
I know,
the
he's
action.
freaking
Feel it. Tap the bottom, and
yeah. Next thing I know, he's catching a steelhead.
That's funny.
Then we were out on the boat perch fishing, and we seen one. That's when we seen that one rise, and I was like, psh, I cast it over by it. I said, "Hey, Luke, hold my pole for a second. I think I'm getting a bite on my
Perch rod.
my crappie rig here." I really wasn't.
Yeah.
I knew that steelhead was gonna bite,
Yeah.
but not to make Luke catch all those steelhead. It's just
It was fun. That was a big one.
yeah.
That was probably pushing.
That was a nice one. That
8,
was
9 pounds.
No perch though. That was weird. That spot
Not
usually
in that
has some.
spot, but the first spot we went to, we
Yeah.
slammed him.
That spot usually has some big ones in there. I got one big one down there this year. I mean, only one though.
Yeah.
Real
But-
big though. 14 and a half.
We're probably,
Whoa.
what are we going on? What,
Hour and a half.
hour and a half?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we definitely have, I guarantee we got another hour and a half of
Yeah.
more stories we could go on. But might have to cut it and do a part 2. And
Yeah.
if you would,
Oh,
maybe
I'm sure we
come
could
back
have you
on
back
the
on.
podcast
Oh,
again.
I'd love to. I love
But,
talking fishing.
I mean,
I'll
Yeah.
tell you all
we
kinds
can-
of stories.
We can do, ice fishing or,
Oh, yeah,
even early. I mean, Levi's done it all. We actually really, saltwater was that really
That was my
last
first.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Last
my
thing
first.
we could talk about that
Oh,
trip that
man.
we went into. That was awesome.
Never been to the ocean. That was my
But-
first time ever there.
That was cool. We were swimming literally with sharks and stingray, like
Yeah.
under our
That-
feet.
That one was, I almost stepped on the one.
Yeah, that was-
It's pretty crazy. But anyways,
But-
yeah, we can save that for next time.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you a really funny story about that one too. So I'll save that for next time. That's
Yeah.
a real good story. It's super funny.
Well, we'll
Well,
let
two.
we'll let Frank wrap it up.
Actually,
and
I was
then-
gonna give it to Nick. Okay, he
Oh,
doesn't even
he doesn't
want
even want to say a
wanna
single
it.
word
Oh,
today.
All right, I think we're just gonna take it off your attendance then.
But
so
yeah, but Levi, you'll have to pay attention. We have the same line that we close with every podcast.
Okay.
Since the first
yeah,
one?
every time.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So maybe they'll let you when you come back on do the closeout. So you'll
Yeah,
have to
take notes this time. We'll let you do it next
it's pretty
time.
It's a really
difficult.
complicated
Oh
phrase.
man.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, so we really appreciate you coming on. We love, like you said, talk fishing all night long, talk hunting all night long. So we appreciate you coming on, and definitely look forward to having you back. So yeah, I usually don't do this. I don't even know what to say to end it, but yeah, we really appreciate it. We appreciate you guys listening. So take all those tips and tricks that Levi just gave you, and make sure you're getting outside.